الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Salamaleiko wa rahmatullah, sejam muito bem-vindos, nossa querida audiência, para um retorno histórico aqui do Salamaleiko Podcast. Hoje um episódio sensacional, maravilhoso. Antes de passar a bola para os meus irmãos aqui presentes, queria falar que o Salamaleiko ficou um tempo parado após a saída do Sharif, que também está lançando o podcast dele, acompanhe, o Voz Ativa, mas que vamos voltar a fazer os episódios, a gente não vai parar. Então acompanhe, fique ligado, porque vai sair muita novidade, muita coisa muito legal. Então a gente conta aí com vocês para aquele apoio. Dá o like, se inscreve no nosso canal, curtida, aquele padrão que vocês já sabem para fortalecer aí o nosso podcast. E hoje com o meu grande irmão aqui do lado, que é o verdadeiro apresentador e o conector aí, o articulador desse programa, que trouxe nosso convidado, meu grande irmão Mansur Peixoto, do História Islâmica. É uma honra, eu agradeço você, toda a sua equipe. É uma honra mais uma vez te receber aqui, um grande prazer. E quero que o pessoal aí também vai no canal História Islâmica, dá aquele like, dá aquela força, porque merece muito, certo? Então, salam aleikum, irmão.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Walid. Para mim, mais uma vez, uma honra estar nessa iniciativa aqui, né, que a gente sempre prestigiou desde o comecinho, a gente sempre incentivou as pessoas a ficarem vindo aqui no Salamaleiko Podcast. E hoje é um episódio histórico. Hoje é um episódio histórico na história do Brasil, na história da comunidade muçulmana, na história da comunidade judaica, na história das relações islamo-judaicas aqui no Brasil. Nós temos aqui esse episódio é histórico, né? A gente está aqui unidos para fazer história. E a gente tem um convidado aqui que é uma pessoa de uma imensa bagagem na defesa da justiça, da verdade histórica e da amizade entre os povos, que é o nosso Rabino Weiss, que veio visitar a gente hoje. Nossa conversa, vocês vão assistir, ela vai ser em inglês, tá? Vamos colocar legendas e vocês vão poder ler as legendas, porque o nosso Rabino, ele tá chegando no Brasil hoje, ainda não conhece o português. So, we are proceeding the conversation in English. I gave an introduction, Rabbi, and I said that it's a historical event that you are here in Brazil, and we are full-heartedly welcoming you. You know, I have watching your biography since I was a kid, because when I convert to Islam, when you start to being a Muslim, you start by seeing many different causes in the world. This is what happened. So the most important one is what happened in Palestine. And once I was in the door of our small mosque in my hometown in Recife, and there is a brother there called Hosnir, and he said, "Oh, look, there is a video of this Jewish rabbi talking about Palestine. His name is Rabbi Weiss." And I said, "Oh, very good video. It was years and years ago." And now I'm in front of you. It's like you see a childhood hero, you know? Yeah, we are, you know, we are making history, you know, and this is a very important for me. And I like to start our conversation by, you know, ask you by the beginning of your biography as a person who is interested on Palestine, as a Jewish person, because in those days are not easy. Anti-Zionist Jews are persecuted everywhere, even on Palestine. So how you got, you know, this impetus to start to speak about this subject and make, you know, a global militance on this matter?
Well, first thing is I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that He may, that He make me worthy of conveying His message, and so I can sanctify His name and inshallah bring peace to the world. Amen. And so the saints. I don't know Portuguese, as I could say, but so I apologize. But again, it's this we are speaking truth with God's help. So it crosses languages, and it's just things of the heart. It's things that's critical. So God should help. We should be able to convey the message, even though I'm lacking in the local language. And assalamu alaikum for all the people here, the Muslim people who are listening. I was brought up, thank God, I was born and brought up in a very religious Jewish family. My father of blessed memory actually had the great privilege of being a follower of a great rabbi in Hungary, Czechoslovakia. He was at the border. It's called Minkac. It's the border between and the Minkac Rebbe. He was known. He was Chaim Lozer Shapiro, a very great holy man. Maybe the most vocal opponent of Zionism, and well known in everything, his holiness, his knowledge. He was brilliant. He wrote many books. He was and his main stance he was known for is standing against Zionism. He passed away way before the Second World War. So just giving an idea that Zionism isn't a problem of today, of 77 years. And my father of blessed memory, his history was that his parents were killed in Auschwitz, and he escaped when the Nazis came to Hungary, and eventually came to the U.S. My mother of blessed memory was from originally actually Polish descent, but she was born in Hungary also. They met in the U.S., married, and I was born and bred in New York, and went to very religious schools. And thank God. And so, as I, with God's help, explain, the very religious schools are automatically anti-Zionist. It's one and the same. It's like you say, if you're religious, you don't eat pork. That's it. That's part of the religion. You keep the Sabbath. Part of the basics of Judaism is the opposition to Zionism. So, as I say, I was brought up like in a very religious family. In my youth, I occasionally went to demonstrations. I remember some old Jewish ladies on the bus who I doubt they were religious, who were yelling at us. I still remember that also when I was very young. They were yelling at us simply. They said, "How could you go? You're desecrating God's name." Because I had short payas, and they say, with tzitzis or whatever the Jews wear, we wear on the quarters, and so we're desecrating God's name. I mean, just because they like to blend into society, and they feel very uncomfortable with somebody who's up showing their religion. But anyway, basically, so I grew up as a very thank God, I was blessed by God in a religious community, and therefore anti-Zionist, and I could explain maybe the basic principles to understand the distinct difference between Judaism and Zionism. Please. So you can understand why it has to be that it's a very religious community will be anti-Zionist. Because basically Judaism is a religion of, with God's help, it's over 3,000 years, where we made a covenant with the Almighty. Moses went up on Mount Sinai, got the Torah from God. God took the Jewish children out of Egypt, and then we went to Mount Sinai and got the Torah, where we made a covenant to be subservient to God and upholding His laws. So that was our covenant. That's what Judaism is. All it is. It's to be subservient to God and uphold the laws of the Torah. This is for over 3,000 years. It's been passed down without any gap in history, and we're strictly commanded in the Torah that we're not allowed to add a letter, one letter, or subtract a letter. We have to strictly adhere to the rules of the Torah. And that's what we try to do at the cost of our lives. So we may go through the Inquisition, the Crusades, Jews are murdered, and we will proudly say that we die for our religion. And we teach our children this, and that's what Judaism is. Zionism is a movement, a political movement, a base political, physical, materialist movement of having a piece of land, having a real estate that they would call their homeland, that there should be a nation amongst nations. So, and it's taking God out of the equation, because they proudly announce it's of course not true what they announce, that they're a democracy, but they announce they're a democracy. They're not, but basically because they're not equal with everybody. But they proudly announce they're a democracy, and you don't have to practice the religion. Well, let me understand. It's a Jewish state. What does that mean? It's the Jewish that we gave our lives for the Torah, and if somebody came and said you shouldn't observe the Torah, you should not keep the Sabbath, people were ready to die proudly for it. And here they're announcing, and not only announcing, they're practicing the desecration of the Sabbath, that the cars go and come in the middle of the Sabbath like it would be a Tuesday afternoon. I mean, this is a Jewish state. What are we dealing with? Their chief Satan, the demon called Netanyahu, who goes traipsing around. He's not wearing a covering on his head. He will, for occasional, for some ceremony, he'll put something on his head. Every Jew is required, according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to our laws, that you have to cover your head. We wear under a hat, the hat you wear outside or whatever, the prayers and so on. But you wear a yarmulke. What is a yarmulke? A yarmulke means Yoreh Malka, to fear, Yoreh, fear Malka, the king. We always cover our heads because we're required to remember that we have a God above us. Basically, this Zionism is a nationalist concept of a selfish desire to have a piece of land. So it's totally the antithetical, the nemesis, the total contradiction to what Judaism is. It's serving oneself and ignoring the will of God, and so that's basic in its essence. It's more than that. In its essence, it's also it spews blasphemy, because you'll ask them, why do you need this state? I mean, we're living 100,000, 2,000 years in exile. What's going on? What are you talking about? We have to have an insurance. We have to have a safe home, an insurance policy to protect us. Well, what do you mean? We always turn to God as our protection. They start scorning us and laughing at the religious Jew. Where was God by the Crusades, the Inquisition? Where was God all these years? So you have to have an Uzi. You have to have a Iron Dome. You have to have. So in other words, basically, God is weak. God forbid, or it doesn't exist by them at all. If they usually just for argument's sake, they'll say that.
Yeah.
But basically, so their whole contention, their whole issue is that it's predicated, it's built on the philosophy, on the ideology that God is weak, and we have to have a homeland as a protection. So it's rooted in blasphemy. Again, it's rooted in many other things. In when it comes to fruition, when they created the state, so God, the Almighty, foresaw that there'll be people who will be impatient with the exile that we're living in, which I'll explain the exile. But basically, so God put us under oath. It's called the oaths of exile, where King Solomon, when God took us, let me go a step back. God took us out of Egypt, required of us, we accepted the Torah, and we were required, the Almighty wanted us to go into the Holy Land. Anybody who would not worship idols could remain there. They didn't have to be Jewish to remain there. But God required of us to go. But he stipulated in the Torah many times that if we're not on that high level of spirituality that's required to be in the Holy Land, then we will be driven like a body. If you try to put in a piece of sand in an eye, it's very sensitive. It'll start blinking, and it can't accept it. The Holy Land is holy, and we are warned. It says in the Torah many times, so the land will reject you if you defile the land. So if we're not on that special level of holiness, we will be sent from the land. And every prophet, and anybody can read the prophecies of Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they're all there. And each one warns the Jews that you're not on that level you're supposed to be, and therefore will be driven from the land, which eventually happened with the destruction of the temple. So when the Jews went in, they went in as required by God. The Almighty, it was through miraculous happening. It was the will of the Almighty. So the walls of Jericho sunk in, and all our history, by the way, has been it's given the accepting of the Torah. The Jews were on Mount Sinai. There was over 1 million Jews there, because it was the age from 20 to 60. It was men of the age of the age from 20 to 60 were men. That's beside the women folk and the older men and the younger children. So it comes out to over 1 million, has to be. And they all heard the word of God speaking to them when they accepted the Torah. So, and it was passed down from them, Moshe to Joshua to the Canaan. And there was never a gap in our history. So we all heard and accepted this covenant. And we went into the Holy Land. The ones they were reluctant to go, they were punished, so they had to wander 40 years in the wilderness. Then they went in, and God, with miracles, Joshua took them in, not Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu remained in Sinai. But basically, he took them in, and being it was the will of God, so they walked around the walls of Jericho, and they were all witness to it. We are a people of the book, so nobody refutes this. So if there would be anything that's not true, it would have been refuted. Everything is written, and there was over 1 million people there. So they saw how the walls of Jericho sunk in, because it was the will of the Almighty. But the Almighty stated we have to be on a high level of spirituality. If not, we're going to be driven from the land. King Solomon built the temple, but he warned in his book, Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, that there will come a time, and if we'll be sent into exile, then you are under 3 oaths. 1, not to return in mass. Don't return in large numbers. Secondly, do not rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside. If it's in Brazil or Iran or Egypt or wherever it may be, we have to be loyal citizens. Thirdly, not to make any attempt to end exile. So this was 2,000 years ago. The Jews were driven into exile with the destruction of the temple, and they were spread out in Babylon, Iraq today, and in Ashkenaz, it was in Germany, and all these different. So the Jews were spread out in many, many countries, and we knew that we didn't lose our religion. We have to be subservient to God, uphold the religion. But one of the issues is when any suffering that happens, God is almighty. So reward and punishment is from God. A tsunami is from God. Nothing happens just like that. So if something happens, we have to be introspective and look to God. Why is the reason for this? And pray and fast and repent. And then same thing as if we're driven from a land, we know that it's a decree of God. It didn't just, when a king has in his heart to drive Jews out of the land or persecution, we know it's the will of the Almighty. Yeah. And we accept that. Yes, if somebody's an evil person, he'll be punished by God. But the fact that it came out it played out in this way that we're driven, so it's not. That's our issue with God. Mm-hmm. That person who did it, the evil, he'll be punished. But we have an issue with God. So our rabbis teach us in our book, the Shulchan Aruch, the law books, that we are to. The rabbis will call together the community, and they'll be introspective. They'll start asking what happened, how do we better ourselves. After fasting and praying, then they will send a delegation and to approach the king or the leader and say, try to placate them. If nothing works else, then we go into exile from there. We go to another land. So basically, God foresaw that that there will be people impatient with the exile that He drove us into 2,000 years ago. So He warned us. The solution is not to return en masse, not to rebel against nations. We are a godly decreed exile. The way is to pray, better ourselves, and so forth. And if occasionally we have to leave the land, we leave the land. But not to attempt to leave exile. A father punishes his child because he was misbehaving. So the child was very bad. He warned him a few times. He tells him, listen. So the father says, stand in the corner for 10 minutes. After 1 minute, the kid gets fidgety, and he says, "No, I'm good. I do everything good." And he comes out. The father says, "I warned you. You must stay there." "No, I'm your loyal son. I'm coming back to you." And he goes out of the corner. The father said, "You are disobeying. That's not. I want you to be there for a reason. I want it because that's a medicine. So our exile is a bitter medicine. We are dispersed amongst nations. It's a bitter medicine. A person in exile." It breaks their horn, but it serves a dual purpose. One of the great rabbis of Germany, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, he was the one who fought against Reform Judaism, which is another problem for Judaism, that they're going to change Judaism. You can't change God's religion. It's ridiculous. But so he came along, Rabbi Samson first, and he spoke about exile also. And he said, God is the perfect king. A regular king punishes somebody. He has no control over the family that's suffering. The guy rebelled against him, he hangs him. The guy deserved to be hanged. But the other people in the family, they suffer. What could he do? His hands are, he can't do anything. Because he's short in power. It's not. But God is the King of Kings. He wanted the Jews dispersed amongst the nations to break our haughtiness, but it's to serve a dual purpose. We're dispersed amongst the nations, and in that manner, ideally, when we're serving God properly, keeping the commandments, emulating God, just as God is compassionate, you are compassionate, and we're properly serving God, then we would be a light unto the nations that they should see how to serve God, not to become Jewish, but to simply to how to serve God. So he said, this is the concept of our exile. God put us into exile. He foresaw there'll be people who will be impatient, so he gave us 3 oaths. Do not attempt to return en masse. Do not rebel against any nations. Be a loyal citizen. The requirement is even if we are taxed unfairly, we still have to be loyal citizens in that country, except if they want to tell us not to keep the Sabbath, keep the Jewish laws. Then Daniel says in his book, At v'kal b'shovin. He said, when it comes to taxation, you are my king. When the king said you should bow down to idols, he said, when it comes to taxation, you are my king. If you're going to tell me to rebel against God, you and the dog are the same.
Yeah,
it says that.
In Islam we have almost the same concepts.
Right.
We live as loyal citizens of the country that we are living in, except when they tell us to rebel against the Almighty and to pray to another God. This is basically what Islam also teaches.
It says that in Daniel, in the book of Daniel.
Yeah, and we Muslims and Jews, we have a very shared history of peace. And I, as a student of history, I never saw a people who have less wars living together than Jews and Muslims.
Listen, we were
for
always
so many centuries.
Yeah, I always carry a few pictures of how we live together. Jews and Muslims always live together without any human rights groups to protect. It wasn't necessary. With a distinctly different religion, we believe in one God and we have many similarities, but it's a different. And it still wasn't an impediment to coexistence.
Coexistence. And I want to ask you, Rabbi.
Before you ask me, I'm sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
I'm going to try very concise. So basically, Judaism is to uphold the Torah. We were sent into exile because we were not on that level required. So 3,000 years ago was the religion. 2,000 years ago, we were sent into exile. The Almighty foresaw there'll be people who'll be impatient with the exile. He put us under 3 oaths. That we should not rebel, we should not return en masse, we should not rebel against any nations, and thirdly, not to make any attempt to leave exile. On top of that, Jews are required to show gratitude to people who are good to us. Now, we went through the last 1,000 years of an inquisition and crusades, so much suffering in Europe. And where did the Jews go when we were banished from the lands and when we ran away from lands? It was the Muslim and Arab countries that embraced the Jews and gave us a safe haven, a land and to flourish in, a homeland to live in amongst all, like I say, go through the whole list, from including the Ottoman Empire in Palestine. So Jews are required, as it says in our Torah, basics of the Torah, to show gratitude, to repay with good for the good done to us. So now we have all these concepts that I've mentioned with God's help. Zionism comes along. It's a mere movement of people, a political movement that started around 140 years ago. Let's say, they were a group of people who came from Reform Jews, people who dropped the religion. They didn't keep the Sabbath. They didn't eat kosher as a general rule, and they decided they want to have their own homeland. They decided Reform Judaism was trying to assimilate. They said they're going to reform the religion, and they're going to stop dressing as a Jew, and they're not going to keep the laws, and they're going to be accepted in the society. It didn't work out well for them because you can't outsmart God. That's not the solution. The way to be protected by God is by keeping his Torah. But basically, so the children and grandchildren, many of them decided this assimilation of Reform Judaism isn't working for us because there's still anti-Semitism. So they said it's the works of Satan because there was just an excuse. But
step by step, changing everything.
So they're going to make their own homeland. That's going to be the protection. And they were thinking of Uganda, Patagonia, different areas to make the homeland because it was rich. In those days, it was before technology, so you needed a lush land. But then, in the 1890s, they had a meeting in Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland, where they decided, no, you need massive support of other countries in order to create a state. So they're going to go to Palestine, and they'll tell the people, hey, God gave us, this is the children of Israel. Remember, we went out of Egypt, and the Christians study this, and the Muslim people study this. So, hey, we got to have this land because it's godly given to us. So they waved the Torah as a deed to the land and claimed the rights. Many of them knew, and they were very well aware because they had come from maybe Jewish education. They knew that it's expressly forbidden for Jews to attempt to leave exile. The ones who didn't know became aware. So basically, when they decided to say, so their whole concept is rooted in blasphemy. We need our own protection. That God can't protect us. When they're doing it, when they came to its fruition, they're breaching the laws that you shouldn't return en masse, which they call everybody, make the aliyah, they call it aliyah, come on up. Eschalta de geula, beginning of redemption. So the oath that you shouldn't go up en masse, the oath that you shouldn't rebel against nations, of course they breached that because they picked a land that to their detriment, it was inhabited by the most of the people were Muslims. So how do they get rid of this? So they have to vilify these people and say that they're only there because and they're against the Jewish settlements because they hate Jews. So basically they're starting to fight against the nations, which is the second oath: do not rebel against nations. And thirdly, they keep on saying which the third oath is not to attempt to leave exile. They all call themselves Eschalta de Geula, beginning of redemption. On top of that, we are to always remember the good that was done to us in the Ottoman Empire, in all the Arab and Muslim countries. We were taken in. So how dare they, in order to realize their dream of a homeland, they have to make a narrative. They have to invent a narrative that the Muslims hate the Jews. So by doing this, they're vilifying the same people that were so kind to us and took us in when we were being harassed and murdered in Europe. So in every concept, Zionism is totally contradictory to Judaism, unacceptable, and therefore it's a very, very basic logical thing to understand that the very religious communities, where I am from in New York, the largest community outside of Jerusalem, right across from Manhattan. People come to Manhattan. You can see our community because we live in, many of us, the largest concentration in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, right across from Manhattan. And there's bridges. Manhattan is an island, so there's bridges. George Washington Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, and Williamsburg Bridge. You cross the Williamsburg Bridge, you're coming right smack on the right side, right into the Jewish conclave, the Jewish area, where you go for miles and miles. There's not one single Israeli flag. And the reason for that is because being that they're so religious, you see right away you're in the religion because the women dress modestly, the men dress modestly, they have beards, it's a very religious area. Therefore, because they're very religious, they are anti the existence of the state of Israel, not just the anti what they're doing in Gaza today, which is so demonic, so beyond anything that a person could think. The existence of the state, that they try to sugarcoat it, that it was good. No, we are against the existence of the state. Therefore, there's no Israeli flags, never for 1 minute flying there. And the same if you go to Stamford Hills in England, you will go to in Canada, Montreal. We're insulated. There's even small pockets of very religious communities. Even in Sao Paulo here, in Argentina, there's a beautiful little called Eckstein's community. There's beautiful communities that are very strongly anti. And the question is, should anybody who has little logic, a little sense, will ask themselves, if Zionism is critical for Judaism, was beneficial for Judaism, the first ones to embrace it would be the very religious who give their lives for the religion, right? We have private schooling, we have public school, but we're not allowed to have family planning. An average family must probably 6-7 children in our communities, because that's the way God blesses the person gets married at the age of 20, which was required or so. And so we're talking large families. We have private schooling because it's unacceptable, the public schools mixed teaching and the mixed classes. We have separate boys and girls schools. So we have everybody sends their children to private schools and pays. Imagine paying for 10 children or 7 children or even for from their baby till they get married in a school. You know how much that costs? Food, Jewish kosher food, the clothing that it should be modest, and you can't just get it in a factory outlet. So they're giving their lives for their religion.
Yeah.
And if it would be anything beneficial for Judaism, this would be the first communities that embrace it.
Yeah.
You find the very religious opposers. So you have to use your logic and understand what is the reason for this. Because Zionism is inherently evil. It's a rebellion against God. It's not Judaism. They are masquerading. They are going around using the symbols of Judaism, the Star of David, the name Israel, simply in order to realize the accomplishment of creating a state of flawed, selfish occupation of another people that are living there, the Muslims that are living there, the Palestinian people that were the majority actually that were living there.
Yeah.
And even not only of them, but the Jewish people also. We've been 77 years that they have their state.
Perfect.
We've been demonstrating all the time in the streets of Jerusalem. And you can see, go to our sites, they spray them because they go on the street. We never carry guns. We never carry knives. We demonstrate constantly, all the time since they're existing. They use every tactic. They spray them with chemicals that destroy. It's called stink water. It destroys the clothes to discourage demonstrations, and it makes the skin inflamed. They trample them with horses. They drive into them with cars. They assassinate our rabbis. You see, it's an army. And what are they doing, the Jews? They're simply standing up and saying, in this democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, that they're standing there and saying, wait, this is not our religion. It's not kosher, the state. And here you can see children, old rabbis, and they get arrested because it's mandatory military service. And we refuse to serve in the army. We will never serve in the. So they say it's because they want to sit and learn. No, the ladies don't sit and learn, so don't give that. And not only that, it's not because they don't want to sit. They don't want to serve in an army that's rebelling against God. Yeah. That's the fact. And they're trying to. They just made a law. This of 2 days ago, I heard they do it. If they're going to implode, it never works. They try every 10 years because we'd rather die than serve in their army.
Yeah, this is so. It is so, how can I say, it gave a feeling of angry about how they destroyed this very beautiful history.
Yeah.
Because here in Brazil, we have a very famous Jewish TV presenter. He's a very, very famous guy called Silvio Santos. Yeah. He's descendant of a very long lineage of rabbis that started in Spain. His actual name was Senor, because he was descendant of Abraham Senior, who was one of the greatest rabbis of Castile. When the Inquisition started to persecute his family, he took the help of the Ottomans, from the Sultan Bayezid, and then he traveled all the way from Spain to the Ottoman Empire, and he lives there in Thessalonica, in Greece, for years and years and hundreds of years, his family growing, and he was a very prosperous man. And then he come to Brazil, he's still become very prosperous man. And these people now in the same television that is only possible because of this story of, cooperation between Muslims and Jews, they are saying that, oh no, Muslims are enemies of the Jews. They can't live together. They are enemy people. They say that we are fighting for thousands of years. This is what they tell. Yeah, it's insanity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to ask you, Rabbi, for a Jewish life, what is the necessity of a secular or Jewish state as Israel is presenting itself? How is the life of a Jew inside of this state? Because, for example, the state of Israel, they have mandatory military obligations that don't keep the Shabbat.
Right.
This is true. Many of the actions of the government is totally against the Torah.
Right.
Everything. How can you be a Jew, a practicing Jew, the very definition of the word Jew, and live in such a state? Which benefit the Jewish people will take from it is the extinction of Judaism.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, but in fact, we put out a book, The Rabbis Speak Out. It's a compilation of almost every single country I mean, there's tens of thousands of rabbis, but these are the leading voices. So from both Ashkenazic and Sephardic Jews, Rabbi the Baba Sali, very famous from Morocco, Rabbi Yisroel Abu Chatzira, he passed away. He was from 1890 before the state till 1984, and he lived in Jerusalem also. And he said, I hereby join the great rabbis of the Sephardic Eideh Haredis. Eideh Haredis means God-fearing community in the holy city of Jerusalem in support of their Torah ruling that it is forbidden to participate in the governmental elections because it is against our holy Torah. This is what Judaism is. So you're right. They say we should not have any actions together or with the state of Israel and any of it. So we have many Jews. They refuse to go to the elections. They refuse to participate in the elections because when they get arrested. Thousands of times the Jews, could they demonstrate? They get arrested. They refuse to go to the army. They get arrested. So when they get arrested, the judge they take them in front of the judge, and the judge says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Eini makir, I don't recognize you." Eini makir, they call it. I don't recognize you. You don't exist as far as we're concerned. But it's very hard. It's extremely hard because you want to travel. You can't if you don't have a passport, right? You need and you didn't serve in the army. You're already a criminal. So everybody who's 17 becomes a criminal. Besides which, they have the largest percentage of not normal people. You know what? I mean, what it means? I'll explain. Yeah. Because the ones who don't want to serve in the army, many on principle they won't even go register. But that's very dangerous. Because the Zionists are animals, and they're going to, they'll arrest them and they'll make their life extremely hard. So the other way is that the Zionists know they're not going to serve in their army, so they don't want it to implode the country, to have this turmoil. So they know that these young people will go to somebody will escort them to the office of the army, or the recruiting place, and they'll go in and he'll stare at the sky and he'll
faking that they are,
and he'll have a letter from a doctor that he's not normal. So they have the largest statistic-wise percentage not normal. That's a fact. That's the easiest way to get out of it. To say that he's missing a hand is hard to say, because he's got a hand, but to say he's not normal. Yeah, and it goes through. But then they crack down after every few years because the other people are not religious. They're busy fighting in Gaza and dying, and they say, hey, that's not fair. Why should they be there 2 years and the religious people don't have to go? So this is ongoing. But like you say, it's very hard to live. But there's many. In fact, the chief rabbi of Palestine, after Rabbi Dushinsky, who I showed you, he passed on. Then there was another chief rabbi. His name was Rabbi Teitelbaum of blessed memory, Satmar Rebbe, very, very great. We always pick a chief rabbi. They pick from around the world. He somebody's holy and brilliant and kind and the best, because it's a very exalted position. Anyway, he became the chief rabbi of Teitelbaum and fought Zionism. I can't even describe it. Almost a speech didn't go through his life that he didn't speak against Zionism. He himself moved to New York, to Williamsburg. And he constantly urged his followers to leave Palestine. He said, because you don't know how, by living there, that you're giving them support. You don't know. Now, so many thousands and tens of thousands did leave. I have many of my colleagues who left and came to New York or came to England or wherever, many other places. Unfortunately, it's very hard to leave. All these countries give it a very hard time to give a visa. As you know, it's very hard. So we have so many people are there. Also, there's some other rabbis who disagreed with the chief rabbi, Rabbi Teitelbaum, and they said, no, we have to stay and not capitulate. If we're going to leave, so we're going to leave the Zionists to have complete control. And who's going to see that Jerusalem should be holy? So there were many who did remain, and you still have hundreds of thousands there who are anti-Zionists, who are living and fighting. So some of them don't register, others register, and like I say, but they don't serve in the army, and on and on. So you have very large communities that are fighting constantly, going to demonstrations. It's very hard. They don't take money, or many of them don't take any funding from the state. Another example, for instance, there's free medical care, socialized medicine over there. So somebody has a baby, and again, we have large families. So they go to the hospital, they have a baby, and then afterwards they want to be released from the hospital. So the doctor, whatever, they come there, they say, we're ready to leave. They say, excuse me, you have a bill of so many thousands
shekels.
Whatever it's called. I know it's called shekels. I hate to use their words.
Yeah.
So and pay up. So you say, they don't have the money to pay that money. Oh, all you have to do is just sign on the dotted line. Just sign, that's with it says the name of Israel on the top, their official paper. All you have to do is sign, and you're free to go without paying a penny. So it's extremely hard, and the testing is very hard on the Jewish soul.
Yeah.
So we have the Rabbi Teitelbaum created an organization called Hatzolah, Keren Hatzolah. Keren is a fund Hatzolah of saving, where it's an umbrella organization that millions and millions of dollars we collect around the world for people who don't take any money from the state of Israel. And they give to this organizations, schools. So a lot of times people come for charity, which is the Jewish way it works, to collect money for schools and for poor people. And so they'll knock on the door and they'll say, I'm here. These are the people who don't take money from Israel. Oh, so they get a special funding, and people give more money for that cause. And there's a special fund called Keren Hatzolah that is to provide for schools a certain percent because they're not taking money from you, and for the individuals and on. So it's asking how it's very hard.
It's very hard.
There.
No, it's almost like an inquisition.
Yeah.
You are describing for me what the Spanish priests they do to the Jews in the Middle Ages or something like this.
Yeah,
in the early modern period, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that the people, the Zionists, both Zionist Christians and Zionist Jews, because people think that only there is a Zionists in Judaism. Right. No, there is even Christians who are now following Zionism that they need to learn from history, because I say that is a pattern. Every time we have a crazy leader that will ruin the face of the world Jewry. We have Bar Kokhba, we have Sabbatai Ben Zvi, and now you have Netanyahu. Every house in the world, even on Thailand, even on a small country in Asia or South America, people are seeing atrocities being committed in the name of the Jewish people. In the past, if you study the history of anti-Semitism, you study books like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, right. All these defamations, you never have, a video of people doing a real atrocity. You need to imagine, to project on the Jewish people this. Now you have soldiers carrying Jewish symbols inside of Gaza, doing all the atrocities of this. Yeah. So is on the best interest of the Jewish people, for their safety, for the safekeeping and the maintenance of world peace with the Jewish community on a global stage, that people started to denounce it more, hardly, because the Zionists, they ruined the Muslim-Jewish relationship in the Middle East. They ruined it. Right. They destroyed more than 1,000 years of relationship. They are now trying to do the same thing in Europe. They are financing the protests of hating against Muslims. Yeah. And for what? Yeah. For a people who always keep and protect you. I studying the history between Jews and Muslims. We have even Muslims and Jewish pirates who have alliances to protect, in the Mediterranean Sea, the Jewish refugees who come. There is a very, very famous one, Sinan Reis. He was a Jewish pirate with a Muslim pirate called Khizir Reis. So they started an alliance to protect both Muslims and Jews persecuted in Spain. So this is a very amazing history. People don't know about this, all this stuff. Yeah, if you read the details of the history, it's almost like a movie, but it's real history. Yeah. Sinan Reis, you need to, if you wanted to, you can search on internet or on our website. We have the history of Sinan Reis, and also Rambam. Maimonides, he go to the Holy Land and he served on the court of Salahuddin. Saladin. Yeah, he was on his court. He was his position. Right. Muslim leaders, they gave to the Jewish people their very own safekeeping. Because if you have a personal doctor, he can kill you, he can poison you, he can do everything to you. And the Muslims it's not like an exception. Yeah. The Muslims, they choose the most, high-ranking rabbis, like Maimonides, like Joseph Nassi on the Ottoman Empire, like many others, and gave the life of the state and the children to the Jews. They do this. If you go to the history of Spain in Al-Andalus, you have countless of prime minister Jews in Muslim kingdoms.
Yeah.
Sometime fighting in competing Muslim kingdoms have two Jewish prime ministers, and they both fight against each other, leading Muslim armies. People don't know about this history. That is famous Shamuel bin Nagrila, who was a very, very high-ranking rabbi. He got the title of Nasi, Prince of the Jews of Spain. And if you go to Baghdad, the same thing. You know, this is a destruction of our relationship that is happening. But Rabbi, I want to ask you from an advice, how our both community we can heal from this sickness. Because yesterday I was sitting in a shoe shining in the streets of São Paulo, and I was sitting there, and I saw as a very small girl. She passed in front of me, and she looked at my eyes, and I saw she has the same face, the same innocence of a girl that I saw earlier die in Gaza. Just the look of that girl on my eyes, it make me, I shiver.
Yeah.
For I remember all the suffering, and that innocent girl was, alhamdulillah, safe here in Brazil.
Right.
But I remember all the suffering of Gaza. But all this suffering, all this oppression, all this killing, we need to heal.
Yeah.
This is what we need. We need to heal. How can we heal our hearts and work together to defeat this dragon who is, killing the world? Whenever you have a population who live in well-being with Jews, like Iran, like in other places, they attack. They want to destroy it. They want to. How can we heal? What is your advice for a community healing?
Yeah. So, with the help of the Almighty, first I want to just add to you, say, like you said, Netanyahu and the Shabsatvi, the state of Israel, from its beginning, the Netanyahu who you see is an open demon.
Yeah.
Even from the ones who are, you want to say, Rabin, these peacemakers and all these.
Yeah.
No, they were the head of a den of thieves. At the end of the day, it may look politically correct but it is the essence of the state of Israel. The occupation is totally unacceptable. It's against God. It's you can't steal, you can't take a home away. So even when it was under these so-called peacemakers, it was still totally demonic and wrong, because you're stealing the homes from others. It's like, I give the example, you go into, somebody goes, a very rich man has a big palace, many bedrooms, and he goes on vacation, as is natural to do, and he comes, and the house is empty, and he comes home, and there's a family living there. So he says, "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" So he says, "It's mine." The guy claims it's his. So he takes him to court. He's not. What is it? You do the obvious normal thing. He goes to court, and the guy gets up in front of the judge. He says, "Look at this pig." He says, "This guy who the squatter in the house." He says to the judge, he has a big palace, 16 bedrooms there. He has one child. I'm asking you, is it normal? Is it right? I want half. So the judge says, "Well, let me think. So we'll divide it in half." Now I'm asking you, is that tzedek? Is that righteousness? Is that no? He's a thief. He doesn't belong there. It's not his home. So Israel keeps on saying, "Hey, there's so many Arab countries. Well, little God, why don't you let us have it?" You're taking the homes away from the people that were living there, putting aside that spiritually we're not allowed to have a state, even in an uninhabited land, even if it would be totally empty. But how could you come and explain you want a two-state solution? You want to divide it, and everybody should be happy. Why should they be happy? You've taken the land away from another people. It's unjust, and you're thieves. You're pure thieves, plain thieves. So basically, it's not only Netanyahu. I mean, I'm just trying to say, but he's carrying it out in the full force, openly, that everybody's realizing it. And just another issue, like you're talking about the anti-Semitism, Zionism, I keep on saying, is the epitome, is the personification, the textbook example of anti-Semitism, because first of all, the Semites, I'm not thinking Palestinians are Semites, but we'll put that aside. We won't get into
genetic and
semantics. They say or something. So, but at the end of the day, that tens of thousands, well, almost close to 100,000 that in these last 2 years that they've murdered. But also, as I've showed you pictures, they're arresting, beating, assassinating throughout the 77 years and more. From the 1920s, I could show you pictures of rabbis they've assassinated. One by one, they've killed, and so they're busy brutally attacking the religious Jews who simply don't accept their philosophy. What's wrong? You can't have a philosophical difference. There's Democrats and Republicans. You can't have but they brutally attack us. So that, and besides which, everybody is dying for their cause. That nobody could deny that their soldiers are dying, and everybody's dying for, what are they dying for? Because they have a philosophy, because they want to make a state of Israel. So they are the worst anti-Semites that could possibly be, and they cause hate, as you've just so eloquently talked about in the history that I'm awed at your knowledge, but that there's so many generations that we've lived together in peace, and again, not only we live together, we have to really stress that we were given a safe haven amongst the Muslim countries. It wasn't just two people got together. It was the Muslims that provided this safe haven for the Jewish people. So how how corrupt, when they take their homes away from them and they vilify them and call them anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
So who was they created this hate, this rift. It was never a religious conflict. It's a conflict against religion. It's a conflict against God. So what they're doing is anti-Semitism personified, and they accuse everybody who stands up, who's trying to bring peace to the world, who's trying to somehow, in any manner, they're trying them in so many different ways. People, whoever doesn't stand totally and declare that the Palestinians are evil, and their representation, whether it's PLO, whether it's Hamas, whether it's this, that, everybody's evil because they want to kill Jews, which is totally bogus. So it's so an insult to common sense, insult to base sense that God gave every human being to buy into their narrative and their declaration of anti-Semitism and so on. They are anti-Semitism personified. But basically, so I just wanted to speak about that anti-Semitism, because we speak here, what can we do? It's so extremely hard, because really the world, I mean, I have to say, I'm not a prophet. I'm just a rabbi trying to say, state the facts. The fact is, and a rabbi who's my teacher, Rabbi Beck of blessed memory, used to say, I'm reluctant to give solutions, because if you'll dismiss my solution as improbable, or whatever it may be, so then you will say that all his theory, everything is also most probably not right. So he said, therefore I'm reluctant to clump the two together. We have to divide this. We have to understand. Let's be clear. The occupation was totally criminal. The coming of the Zionists and introducing themselves into the beautiful fabric of the Holy Land is criminal, is against God, and it's not Jewish. Jews and Muslims and Christians lived together. The largest populace was the Muslims. The second was the Christians, and then there were the Jews. We were living together, babysitting each other's children. In fact, I was just today on a Zoom conference with a rabbi who's 5 generations Palestinian, Rabbi Beck. He lives in London.
Elhanan Beck.
I
know him. I love to watch his
awesome.
videos.
And he spoke about how his mother, who's in the 90s, she still lived to 120. She lives in my neighborhood in New York. And that she keeps on talking about how they babysat each other. They lived together, Muslims and Jews. They babysat the most precious object, like you spoke, their lives.
Yeah.
They babysat the Muslim children, and they gave their children when they had to go to Yom Kippur, to shul, whatever, to the Muslim neighbors. So they babysat each other's children. They lived together in peace. So comes the Zionists, and they want to create a narrative that we have a religious conflict that's totally bogus. Now, people come along and they try to establish that we can, again, live together. People and unfortunately, these last 2 years, we don't have a day or a night. We're so busy out, with the doing for Gaza. So we have to go, we go to universities, and all the universities are up in arms, the students, and they're standing up and demonstrating, full of Jewish students, together Muslim students and human rights people, and they're standing and they're demanding that they should stop the carnage in Gaza, the murder, the torture, and they're accused of being anti-Semitic. They get they're thrown out of the universities. They put in how much money of their parents' money goes into they're thrown out. They're expelled. They're being thrown out of the United States. Professors, I meet many Jewish professors who are standing demonstrating. They're losing their tenure. They're losing their jobs. Jewish professors, how anti-Semitic are these Jews? And they're getting thrown out. Everybody's getting thrown. So you're asking what we could do. It's extremely hard. But first, a doctor, in order to prescribe a medication, the first thing is he has to diagnose the sickness. If he doesn't diagnose the sickness and he starts giving medications, then he's criminal. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to give cortisone for an internal bleeding, and the person's going to feel better for a week, he's going to end up dying. He's a criminal, the doctor. We have to diagnose to the world what we are dealing with. We are not dealing with a conflict between Jews and Muslims. We are not dealing with a conflict between religion, Islam and Judaism. We are not dealing with any conflict between Jews and Arabs or anything, people living in Palestine. We are dealing with a corrupt, selfish occupation of a people who had a dream to create a land, a dream that was driven by the Satan. That is what we're dealing with. You have to confront the fact, and then you can start dealing with how we can solve the problem. The world, I'm with a white beard, like you say, I remember maybe 40 years ago, we were talking about that the rich Muslim and Arab countries should put advertisements, because they don't take any articles about this, but they should put in advertisements about anecdotes, people talking about their private stories about how they live together, Jews and Muslims, and talk about this. So people, instead of hearing the constant barrage of the news, the media that says that the Arabs, they're trying to kill the Jews, and we need this. This is a solution.
Look, the Muslims and the Arab, they have a history of the global establishment of Jewry. How? First of all, in Islam, we have a very, very important institution called Waqf. It's a charitable institution. The first Waqf of Islam was built with the help of a rabbi, Rabbi Mukhayriq, who died in the Battle of Uhud. Go read the history of At-Tabari, was one of the first Muslim historians. This rabbi, he gave to Prophet Muhammad as a donation the money who was enough to build our first waqf. And then we have many other rabbis who helped to establish the early Muslim community, like Rabbi Abdullah bin Salam, one of the greatest rabbis of the early Muslim community. When the Caliph Omar, he entered Jerusalem, the Jews have been banished from them by the Romans.
Yes.
He brought the Jews back, and he kept the Jews there. When the Muslims, they entered in Spain, 2 decades before the Muslims arrived, the Visigoths, they have expelled the Jews, and if a Jewish children was born in a Jewish family, they were taken as a slave to a Christian family. People love to talk about Tariq ibn Ziyad, who was a very famous Muslim conqueror, but people never talk about his general, who was a Jew, Kaula the Jew. He was with him, and he helped him in the conquering of Spain. And the Muslims, they don't just, Jews now can live in peace. No, they brought Jews with them. Whenever they go, they say, now you said you clean this place of Jews, I will bring more Jews. When the Crusaders, they expelled the Jews from the Holy Land, first you have Nur ad-Din Zenki, and his father, Zenki, bringing Jews first to Edessa, from Mosul in Iraq to Edessa. It's not like you are conquering a place and saying to the people living there, you need to still live. No, I will bring Jews. Jews are needed here. They are our loyal subjects. And every place that Muslims conquer or reconquer, they brought Jews with them. Right. This was the same pattern on the Holy Land in Palestine. When Sultan Mehmed II, he conquered Constantinople, what did he do? brought Jews also with him. Whenever the Muslims go, they bring Jews with them.
Right.
And Jews have a very, very well spread community from Kaifeng in China to Cordoba.
Right.
Whenever the Muslims go, they brought Jews with them. And they established a Jewish community. How can you say that these people are enemies? No, we need to revive history. This is why I have a project. Alhamdulillah, Rabbi Weiss, he has given an interview to us in our 6 hours documentary, who have been watched more than 100,000 times. Alhamdulillah, many people are watching it and loving it. We invited other rabbis also from many different lines, but all anti-Zionists to our documentary, and they are all saying the same thing. You cannot disagree that this is a cup, and that this is a bottle. You can disagree on the quality of it, if you like the color. This is what you can disagree. And you cannot disagree on historical facts.
Exactly.
We are representing historical facts.
Yeah.
You cannot disagree with this.
Right.
So this is what we need to do. And Rabbi, we are going to now to, we have time? Still have time?
Yeah.
We have still time?
It's
Time?
up to you. I'm
You-
only
you-
a guest
you-
here. It's
I am here
No.
just to not want to bothering you,
Yeah.
because I know that you are world traveling,
Yeah.
Thank you,
jet
that's fine.
lag,
Yeah, no,
everything,
this is
but
a privilege
continue.
to be on the show, and a privilege that we should be able to
Yeah.
really bring a remedy to this, because you asked what was able to be done. So first, like I explained,
Yeah.
we have to separate the issue to understand clearly what the problem is. Then you can diagnose a solution. The world is constantly attempting to remedy the situation, because they want to claim that it's a conflict of religions, and therefore, what's the solution? They can't find a solution. They've tried everything. The Camp Wyatt cause, the Camp David cause, and this and that and everything, because they're coming from a full starting line.
Yeah.
And it's Zionism that is the problem. If once that is recognized, then it would be easy. It would be easy. Like apartheid. Apartheid was for tens of years, and Devil's Island, I think, in South Africa, where there was the prisons where Nelson Mandela was 27 years in prison. Remember that they kept people in prison. They were considered terrorists because they were disapproving and opposing the demonization of black people. I mean, and considering them second-class citizens. Now, remember, we are talking about, for tens of years, in the United Nations, that is supposed to be just and created for justice in the world. They gave full credence and respect to South Africa as a legitimate state that was practicing apartheid. Their ambassador was His Excellency and the Prime Minister, and the ones who opposed them were labeled as terrorists. So what happened? I mean, everything is because God ultimately, through His work, and everything happens. But He has methods that it goes that on the world that it happens. So it was the grassroots. It was people who pestered and just didn't let their political leaders go on the merry way, and so they eventually stopped apartheid. Today, if you will try to make a country with apartheid, go to the United Nations. They want to develop. They'll laugh you out of the United Nations.
Yeah.
They'll call you evil. How? Well, why? That went on for tens of years. So you see that the United Nations could condone and accept a total evil as a nation. We are witnessing that the United Nations was created, as I say, 49 years ago, 50 something. 77 years, so 79 years, 80 years in that area. They were created again. That there shouldn't be wars and death in order to adjudicate conflict. They made these, and one of the first things they did was create the state of Israel, ratify the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And so they did a terrible crime, because first of all, it defies logic. But if you're trying that there should be a peace in the world, then how could it be that you should ratify and announce that in a land where the majority is Muslims, the second largest majority community is Christian, and then the Jewish. Let's put aside the Jewish community, which I'm telling you, they pleaded with the United Nations that they don't want the state. It was only the interlopers that came from Vienna, Austria, the Zionists came. But the Jewish community, they were a God-fearing community. As we have the letter from the chief rabbi of Palestine that I showed you furthermore, which looks like, and so forth. They were all anti. But let's put that aside. Let's just say they wanted a Jewish state. So you're making a Jewish state automatically. By calling it a Jewish state, the state of Israel, you are creating psychologically that everybody else will be a second-tier citizens, and that's going to cause strife and bloodshed. So how did the United Nations accept to create the state of Israel? So it's all wrong. And it's wrong because it's totally not Jewish. It's bogus. It's against God. And it's criminal. And they're occupying. Everything they're doing is wrong. So now this is the fact on the table, what it has to be. It has to be removed, but they're on the everybody buys into the narrative. No, that it's acceptable that it was the Jewish people, and the ones who are opposing them, it's not because they were Muslims and they were living in their homes. No, it's because they hate Jews. They hate Jews, and if you dare speak up, everybody is making the laws. New laws, as we're speaking, that it's anti-Semitic to speak against Zionism.
Even in Brazil, now they are trying to pass this as a law.
It's unbelievable. So that is why we cannot come to peace. But if you look at history, anybody with simple, basic common sense, not even wisdom, but common sense, you will understand that we were always living together. And as you say, our history attests we were. And the issue is not a religious issue. It's a selfish, flawed movement. So if Africa, it was solved, South Africa, because the grassroots just simply didn't let these leaders continue on their merry way. They stopped it. Now you turn around, they say, what, there should have been bloodbaths? No. It went away. And now nobody would dream of making apartheid. The same thing is with Israel. It doesn't make sense. It's against logic. It's against God. Remove the impediment to peace. We can live together with the difference of religion. Yes, there are people who will say, and that what are you talking about? They'll be massacred. The Jews are going to be massacred, going to be driven into the sea. Say, wait a second. I've met personally with the leaders of the Muslim groups and anybody who wants to look for the truth, as I say, it's there in front of your eyes. They all spoke, the heads of every single group, whether it was the PLO, whether it was Hezbollah, whether it was Hamas. They all say we want thing. We want freedom. We're not looking. And the history shows that they live together with Jews. What will happen is if their leadership, it's not a Wild West, like everybody's
do whatever they want.
Everybody's under normal. These are the Zionists want to make the Palestinians as some cannibal third world people, but the ones you're looking for the truth, that's false. They're respectful, beautiful, intelligent, kind people. We can again return to live together. Now there are people who committed atrocities. There's the soldiers, the ones who ran the camps, the prison camps, and so forth. So let's say we're talking about, hopefully it's not that much, but let's just say it's 20,000 people. Let's say it's 20,000 people. Let's say 30,000 people. So the United States, Canada, England, there's enough countries that have expansive places that they could take in these people who say they're uncomfortable with a free Palestine. Let's say they could take it. It'll cost how many billions of dollars? How many billions of dollars goes into the weaponry of the Israel every year?
Yeah.
Because they have to protect themselves. Instead of protecting, they're standing there with their hand on top of the people of Palestine, and they need protection because the people don't want to be oppressed. Instead of that, take that money, relocate the ones who feel they're in danger, if they want to, and the rest of the people, there will be obviously all the leadership will want to live together. We can live together. Is it right to oppress and steal the land of the Palestinians because you think that's the only way you can continue this occupation? There's no other solution. No. You have no right to do it. You're occupying.
The hypothetical crime of a Palestinian justify the true crime of a Zionist. Oh, if we did this, if we do that, the Palestinians will do that.
But
as a hypothesis, so I need to act.
I can steal. I can hold them in prison because of that.
This is horrible. And look, Rabbi, you said this, and it's very, very smart because these people, they live in both countries. They are traveling every
That's
time
true
to
also.
Europe, to United
Yeah.
States. They don't live full time in Israel. They are always traveling. Even coming here to Brazil after committing war crimes, they are coming here to Brazil, going and back and forth. And they, how can I say, they have an emotional connection
Right.
with that idea of Zionism. But the fact of the matter that Zionism create the most dangerous place to
Yeah.
being a Jew
100%.
in the world today.
Yeah.
If you want to be a Jew in São Paulo, no problem. We have
Right.
Higienópolis here, a Jewish neighborhood
Yeah.
with kosher food everywhere, Jewish schools, Jewish, artists, Jewish everything, hospitals,
yeah.
everything. We have Albert Einstein here, a hospital,
Yeah, one of
very
the best,
famous
yeah.
one is a Jewish hospital. Very famous. All the all the powerful people of Brazil go to the Jewish hospital. The politicians, everyone. So this is one thing. And if you go to New York, you have the same thing, the same pattern. If you go to Paris, to London, to
Right.
even Beijing, every place you can be a Jew, except safe in Israel.
100%.
Yeah,
That point I
that-
didn't
yeah,
talk about, you're so
yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so
Except
true.
on Israel.
Right.
In Israel, you can be killed 24 hours a day for being of course, a Zionist, but Jew. In this Jewish, identity intermingle with Zionism. But if you go anywhere in the world, it's peace. If you are in Tehran today,
Right.
if you identify yourself as a Jew, wearing a yarmulke on the street, and everyone will look at you and even will admire you for being a Persian Jew who is a
Right.
loyal
I've
citizen.
had that. I've
You
personally
see
been there
this
many
yourself,
times
in
Yeah.
Iran.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to I have to comment on that because they'll say, oh, so you're saying that it's right to kill Jews. That's what they're going to take out of your stuff. So I want to clarify that. It's nobody's talking about it, condoning God forbid, the murder of Jews. But they claim that they are making an insurance policy, a place for the safety of Jews.
Yeah.
Beside that, spiritually, it's against God to make the state. But it's ridiculous by concentrating all the Jews in one area where they're not wanted. So you're putting them in the greatest danger. They say they're in the greatest
Danger,
one
yeah,
side of the mouth. He says to people, "Oh, this is our insurance policy. This is our safe haven. This is what." And the other side says, "Oh, Iran's going to bomb us. They're going to bomb us. They're gonna bomb us." What do you? So just keep. You don't know what you're so confused. Either you're drunk or something. What's happening? They're speaking so contradictory for their comments. It's not a safe haven. First of all, God warns us that we should not attempt to leave exile because God forbid it will bring a nakba. So it's unacceptable. And again, they've had like their hands on top of the people of Palestine, pressing them down. Automatically, we're not condoning violence, but that's what happens when you oppress a people. So, and it's impossible, and it's so wrong. So the world is standing there. What can we do that these two religions get it? No, it's not the two religions. We don't have a problem. We get stop occupying. And again, you're looking for a solution because of danger. Let's discuss what the danger is. The danger is because so let's take out of the equation the fact that you want a Jewish state. Let's put that aside because that's wrong. Once you take that out, you're only having the issue of safety. Then we can discuss the issue of safety. And I said there's a people who are unsafe. So give a couple billions of dollars to relocate them, and then we can have a harmonic coexistence that we've had till now that God requires of us, and that's the Jewish line of thought, and it's so simple. But again, even if you were to say that my way of thinking is wrong, that does not justify in any shape or form the occupation of the people of Palestine.
And if people are wanting an army to serve and protect them, look at the founder of Israel, Ben Gurion. In which army he first served? On the army of the Ottoman Empire. He wore a fez before he was a Zionist politician. He was fighting on the side of the Ottomans. Jews were praying for the victory of the Ottomans against the Russians. For the Russians were doing, horrible things, horrible pogroms against the Jews on Russia. So this is the reality. Muslim armies always protected the Jewish subjects and citizens. And, in Damascus, in the city of Damascus in Syria, one thing that is very beautiful. There are many Jewish palaces. They still today, even with all the bloodshed of wars and everything, they are still there, and this is the legacy. Legacy of this history.
Yeah.
You go there. When the last Muslim king of Spain departed, Muhammad Boabdil, as he's known, he signed a letter and he gave to Queen Isabella, and he said, please grant the safekeeping of Jews also and Muslims, but Jews also. He was not looking only for Muslims. In the letter, he write this. But of course, when he go out, the Inquisition come and do all the barbarity. So Muslims, even the last act of a Muslim king in Spain was trying to sign out the protection of Jews.
Yeah. We put out a book called Traditional Torah Opposition to Zionism. We have many documents of our rabbis, even in the 1920s, the chief rabbi of Palestine in the 1920s. Again, not to be confused with the Zionist rabbinate, which is just window dressing and a farce. But Rabbi Sonnenfeld met with the king of Transjordan, the Emir of where this. You can see that.
Very famous picture.
And in the 1920s, where he said, we are not aspiring for a state. We Jews, we respect your holy places. He was talking about that the attack on Al-Aqsa Mosque. He said, we are totally, opposed to. This is a picture, by the way, in 1948 of Ben Zion Chazan. Ben Zion Chazan was the Sephardic, one of the Sephardic leading rabbis, and he went out with a white flag to the Jordanians to give over the Jewish community in 1948. The Zionists said, come fight with us. They said they refused. So they shot him. The Zionists shot him, and he had a bullet in his leg his whole life. He went out with a white flag to give over the Jewish community, the Jordanians, and they protected the Jewish community the whole time during the war. But I just wanted I think it's critical to just get this idea. You have let's start with Theodor Herzl, the father of Zionism. He said he wrote in his diary, the way to solve the problem of anti-Semitism is to speak to the head priest of Vienna, to get an appointment with the Pope, to make a mass conversion of all the Jews of Austria to Catholicism. That's his solution. It should be done on a Sunday in the middle of the day with music and pride publicly. We are the last generation that held on to the faith of our forefathers. It should be done in St. Stephen Cathedral. Imagine, he's the hero of Judaism. Zion is the father of Zion. He didn't circumcise his son. Even a secular Jew circumcises their children because that's covenant with God. He didn't. He was an atheist. And he said the Jews should convert to Catholicism. We died and burnt at the stake in the Inquisitions. And that's his solution. He then, Zhabatinsky was one of also the fathers of Zionism in that time, and Vladimir Zhabatinsky was the founder of revisionist Zionism. And Zhabatinsky stated, put it in the newspaper, Arutz magazine in 1919, over 100 years ago. He wrote, in the national home, we will announce that those Jews who have on themselves the rust of exile and they refuse to shave off their beards and earlocks, payas, will be second-class citizens, will not have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Imagine, you think a Nazi said it. These are the fathers of Zionism.
Oh, for Zionism, yeah.
But one more, I have to quote this. Because this is the one who was pivotal, that England gave the Balfour Declaration and everything that they wanted. And Chaim Weizmann, the first president of Israel, stated, I'm quoting from Jewish Press 202, so it's one of the Zionist papers, but it's quoted many places. He said they had a meeting in 1937, I think it was, 1937, where they were discussing about that Jews are starting to be harassed and killed by the Nazis, and they saw the writing on the wall, it's very dangerous for Jews in Europe. So they had a meeting of the Zionist organization, which was very rich at the time. With the Zionism, again, is not the 77 years that existed, it's around 140 years. So they were very rich, and they had power to be able to maybe establish and save Jews. So he said, Palestine cannot absorb the Jews of Europe. We want only the best of Jewish youth to come to us. We want only the educated to enter Palestine for the purpose of increasing its culture. Educated, he means lawyers, doctors, scientists, not Jews like me. The other Jews will have to stay where they are and face whatever fate awaits them. These millions of Jews are dust on the wheels of history and may have to be blown away. We don't want them pouring into Palestine. We don't want Tel Aviv to become a low-grade ghetto. That's a euphemism, an anti-Semitic thing.
This is like, this is like, I never saw this statement even from the most anti-Semitic
Anti-Semitic people.
Yeah.
These are the heroes of Judaism, the ones who are accusing anybody who dares.
What's the title of this book, Rabbi? I need to buy it, please.
Traditional Torah.
Can you
opposition.
writing the title for me, because I know I wrote
Traditional
this.
Torah opposition. to
Traditional
Zionism.
Torah opposition to
It's just a
Zionism.
couple of documents put together. We have many
Yeah.
more documents than that.
No, I
There's so
need
much.
I need this, because look at even if you see Goebbels
Yeah.
talking about Jews, you see more how can I say refrainment from
Right.
this explicit. But I was interviewing Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro in
Yes.
our documentary, and he said a very funny joke. He told that the difference between Jesus and Theodor Herzl, and I said no. He said Jesus kept the Shabbat, and Theodor Herzl he celebrates Christmas. He told this,
Yeah.
Jesus kept the Shabbat, but Theodor Herzl.
So, Rabbi, I have a question for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
We were talking about solutions and how we can heal and inform people too about what's going on, really. And here in Brazil, like most of the people doesn't even know where to start,
Right.
what to think about it, and they follow the propaganda that it's Zionist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what can you say for, most specifically for evangelical Christians, they are the majority that supports Israel, what can you say for them to open their eyes or show these atrocities they are making, including with Christians there in Palestine?
Yeah.
What can you say?
Well,
to
with the
them?
help of the Almighty, again, like I said, it's the works of Satan. That's why they're so successful. I mean, like I say, why did the UN ratify a creation of a state? It's against logic to make a Jewish state when you're going to have the people who are not religion will order become something. You're asking for trouble. So I'm saying the whole thing. It's satanic that you have 2 years now that they're killing people. That is beyond any comprehension of humanity. How could you? They're shooting people that are going to pick up their food. They're killing doctors. They're killing the reporters. So you see, and the world should not be silent. It cannot. It doesn't make sense that they're silent. So it's satanic. So I don't know what we can say. But I have two things on just basically. We believe there's one God in the world, and everything we can do, but accomplishment comes from God. So we tell everybody first pray to the Almighty. He should bring with His compassion a total, speedy end of this. This genocide in Gaza, and of course in the occupation, because then there will be peace. Everybody's going to turn around after the dismantlement of the state, which will happen, as it says in the Torah. Why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. It says in the Torah, the state will end. We're certain it will end. We pray to God He should, with His compassion, make it end speedily and without any further bloodshed. But once it's going to end, people are going to turn around. They're going to realize it was a mirage. It didn't make any sense. It was only a cause of bloodshed, of hate, of animosity. Because you look at the history. We were living together. Come on, in every land. What happened? What changed? Simply this creation of this monster. So that's going to change once it happens. So first we have to pray. Afterwards, though, we cannot be silent, and you have to. I will always keep on saying, look, you want to use common sense. Common sense. You're hearing people screaming and screaming, so you have a little respect for somebody who doesn't share your opinion. Yes, if somebody's screaming, they're all yelling at people going and demonstrating. Listen what they have to say. So you're going to ask yourself, well, how do I know who's right? Well, ask yourself, they call themselves a Jewish state. Why is it, as I mentioned earlier, that the very religious communities universally, from Al-Quds, from the streets of Jerusalem, where they're demonstrating the whole time, and why aren't they in support of the state? Well, our grandparents died in Auschwitz. We died for our Judaism. Here, this is in the streets of Jerusalem. Stop Zionist terrorist massacre in Gaza. These are in Palestine. These are demonstrations that are happening every single day almost. So listen, ask yourself, people who give their lives for their religion, and they don't spend their time watching football, soccer, whatever, because they I'm not trying to dismiss soccer, but I'm just saying they give their lives to God. Why are they opposed to it? Then, and so if you ask that, then you should be more open to understanding. And then nobody can dismiss that people are dying. Everybody sees they're being murdered, but you're trying to dehumanize these people in Gaza. It's like you're spraying a field and trying to get rid of the ants. You don't feel bad for the ants. You spray the field. They've so dehumanized the people of Gaza by vilifying them, by claiming that because they have one talking point. What about October 7th? What about that? And what did the Secretary General of the United Nations say? He started immediately then. He said, wait, this didn't come out of a vacuum. He was speaking logic. This didn't come out of a vacuum. You're oppressing a people for so many years. They're living in squalor, and the water is not good, and on and on and on. What do you expect will happen? So, who's responsible for October 7th? Zionism, the Zionist state of Israel. When they say they have, since the Holocaust, there was not so much bloodshed. Yes, thank you, the state of Israel, for causing October 7th. We're not talking about is it right, is it wrong? You've caused it. You've so oppressed the people. This has had to happen. And who said it can't happen again, God forbid? This is the result of occupying unjustly a people. Where do you have the right to take the land away from the Palestinian people? So we have to do is keep on speaking logic, never giving up, praying to God. That's because ultimately it's in his hands. But we have to not be silent, even though it's uncomfortable. You said that we are attacked. Yes, we are physically attacked. We get death threats. Our rabbis have been murdered. In 1924, maybe the first famous martyr was Dr. Dahan, which I'm sure knowledgeable about.
I wrote a biography about him in the past week. He is on our website.
Yeah,
you can read on Portuguese.
I could show you the picture of his funeral procession.
Yeah.
Blocks and blocks and blocks in Jerusalem. The streets were black because of humanity that went his. So maybe the first famous martyr was a Jew. And he said, I'm going to court, I'm going to go to England, and I'm going to reveal to them that Zionism is totally not representing the Jewish community. And so what did they do? They warned him. The Zionists said, they told him, we're going to kill you if you're not going to shut up. And 2 or 3 days before he was supposed to go to England, he was people don't know, he was he came from Denmark, and he was a brilliant person, a poet, and he was very close with the king of Denmark. In fact, he decided to become religious. So he decided he's going to go to Palestine. And he thought that's what it meant to be religious. That's what the Zionists like to portray. And he's going to join the Zionists. He joined the Zionists. He went there, and they loved him. He knew 7 languages fluently, I think. And the king of Denmark escorted him to the ocean when he went to the boat. And then he went there, but he was looking for the truth, and immediately became aware that the chief rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Sonnenfeld, who of blessed memory, who was in the 1920s, and the whole community was anti-Zionist, and Zionism wasn't Judaism. So he started helping them. In fact, England required that Jews have to register as under the Zionist leadership, even though the Zionists had just come from Europe. It's beyond understanding. And he saved them from that. But then he said he's going to go to England. He's going to go to and here there's a picture of his funeral procession, Dr. Dahan, in 1924, July 1st, 1924. Yeah. They assassinated him. The Zionists assassinated him. Yeah. And so they've been doing. So it's uncomfortable. But our rabbi said we have to stand up and speak up. It's first of all, what they're doing, the criminal to the Palestinians, the desecration of God's name. Because when people see, is this what it means to be a Jew, to serve God, to kill and steal and to shoot people when they're coming to collect their food? I mean, it's beyond.
Children
anything.
Are eating, a sand. There are videos of children eating sand mixed with flour because it's everything that they have to eat. I have shown on our webpage the suffering of the Jews in the Holocaust, and the image that we have from Gaza. It's like same people.
Yeah.
Same, even the body positions are the same. The same faces, the same eyes, and the people are not looking that, look, after all those years without Jewish state sovereignty, the first opportunity that the Jewish community got, doesn't matter that is what illegitimate. This is what happened. Look, people will say, oh, every time that the Jews got power, they do this. This is how can I say? This is the worst propaganda that you can do.
And it's so false. By the way,
Yeah.
you talk the protocols of the
Yeah,
elders of Zion.
yeah.
I read it. So the protocols of that says that the Jews, rabbis, have a cabal
Yeah.
to take over the world. It is so false and so ridiculous if you know Judaism, because, like I say, a Jew does everything he can to distance himself from politics, and we're supposed to only learn, and we have to pray for the well-being of every country and not mix in politics. So it's all totally contrary and contradictory to what Judaism aspires to and does. But that is in fact the story of protocols was written by an anti-Semite. But when you come to Zionism, Zionism is evil.
Yeah.
Zionism is what they are. Is doing what they're doing. But unfortunately, they start giving credence to when people start speaking about, so if this they are here, so maybe then it's factual, the protocols of Zion and everything
this is
else.
the problem.
Yeah.
They are creating a dangerous world
Most
to be a
dangerous,
Jew.
yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter, because look, when the non-Jews who doesn't know Judaism, by the way, they see a Jew, they cannot differentiate between those who are Zionists
Right.
and those who are not. So
Yeah.
they will attack anyone.
Yeah.
You know, this is the problem. If you go to the Arab Muslim countries right now, there are many people who cannot differentiate. They
Right,
see
exactly.
the image and they get angry, and this is what ignorance do.
Right.
But how can I say, a both side ignorance?
And they want that. The
Yeah.
Zionists want this anti-Semitic, because then they can say, "See, we need a state to protect us."
They
because
live on
they live
anti-Semitism.
on the blood that's that poured. I could tell you, I'm very interested. There's three issues in the anti-Semitism. First of all, it's false, the use of the anti-Semitism. First of all, the Semites, like I said, is the Palestinians also, but the claim of anti-Semitism is so false because you're committing a crime and then you're claiming it's because it's against Jews. So in and of itself, it's wrong. And secondly, it causes the danger for Jewish people, because wherever I go around the world, they go around not dressed like Jews. They can live the life of Riley and go enjoy themselves in Brazil, and go into where they go, Cambodia, wherever they go, do whatever they want to do, and the Jewish people who are practicing religion, God forbid shouldn't happen, suffer because of their crimes that they're doing, because people conflate the two, they don't understand. Thirdly, they're making cheap that word anti-Semitism. We went through the Holocaust. We died, our families, because they're Jewish. And the world took up a statement, anti-Semitism. So if it's like a red line, if something happens and the people start attacking Jews because they're Jews, so you could say anti-Semitism, and people will say, whoa, we remember Hitler, and they'll start to, but by their using, because of their selfish reasons, this word anti-Semitism to cover for their theft and of the land of Palestine. So now it became watered down. It became valueless. So now if somebody attacks a Jew and you say, hey, anti-Semitism is growing here. So everybody laughs at it. They say, oh, it's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, the boy who cried wolf.
So we want to take a class action suit against the governments that are using the word anti-Semitism for that, because we should make a class action suit.
They are using the body of the Jewish people around the world as human shields
for
the crimes.
Exactly.
As hostages. Oh, don't attack me. Look, this is a Jew. And they are not dressing like a Jew. Yeah. They intermingle in the society.
I just remind us, it's so critical. I'm going to mention just one other. Please. When by the World War II, when the Jews were being killed, so it's not in this exactly pertains to this part of the conversation, but Yitzchak Greenbaum was the chairperson of the Jewish Agency's Rescue Committee from the Zionists. When they asked me, couldn't you give money out of the UJA, United Jewish Appeal? That's one of the most famous and largest collection agency for Zionism, the UJA. So he said, when they asked me, couldn't you give money out of the UJA funds for the rescue of Jews in Europe? I said, no. I say again, no. One should resist this wave which pushes Zionist activities to secondary importance. Let them say that I am anti-Semitic. Let them say what they want. I will not demand that the Jewish agency allocates a sum of 300,000 and 100,000 pounds sterling to help European Jewry. I think whoever does that, demands such a thing, is performing an anti-Zionist act. In other words, taking money from the Zionists It's save Jews. That's he says no one. We should resist this wave which pushes Zionist activity to secondary importance, saving lives. They're being murdered, liquidated, gassed, and he says no. That one who demands such a thing is performing an anti-Zionist act. This is UJA.
Yeah.
Do you understand what we're talking about here? They saw Jews being murdered. Now, I'm not saying all the Zionists were like this, but the concept of what Zionism is and their leadership, I carry this around. I always like to show it. This is why I went to Lebanon. We went to visit the Arab community, the Muslim communities, the Palestinian communities. Hezbollah, like I say, they said they're not against this. Many years already. We went to Sabr Shaltila. We went to visit, this is Baja Barajna, these large refugee camps that they're living in squalor. And they gave me this as a symbol that they want to return to their homes in Jerusalem. Yeah. They have a right to return to their homes in Jerusalem. It's their free land. They have no right. The world has to recognize this is simple, relatively new movement, Zionism. You're trying to punch in a square in a circle. Stop trying to force something that is unacceptable. You can just remove it and we can have peace. I'll give just one other little metaphor of this. I said somebody had the two neighbors and they don't get along. And finally, the one neighbor goes to the judge. He goes to court. He calls his neighbor to court. He says, "I'm sneezing." He says, "This guy had a beautiful garden. His neighbor, he's planting roses, and it's becoming prize-winning roses, and he can't take it. The neighbor, he hates him. And he takes him to court. He says, I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, and I'm an allergy. I have allergies from this. So he has to take off this scarf. He has no right to make it. So." The guy says, "Let me ask you, okay, let me understand the case. So you have letters from the doctor." So he says he has letters from the doctor. "How long are you sneezing and coughing?" The doctor says, "The letters, a whole 6 months or to a year, he's having this problem." "How long does this guy have the rose garden?" "Oh, the rose garden. The guy has a rose garden for already 6 years already. He has a rose garden." "And what else has changed in the area?" "Well, he himself planted daisies and stuff, and so how long do you have the daisies?" "Around a year." "So wait, you're coughing and sneezing for a year, and the guy has a rose garden for 6 years, no problems whatsoever. The daisies are coughing, so maybe it's your daisies that making you cough and sneeze." You ever think about that?
Yeah.
Zionism, it's Jewish, it's the religion. Nathaniel gets up there, "God gave us the land, and this and that," and spews anti-bile, he says. But wait a second. We were living together and beautifully. What changed? Zionism. Why is the United Nations and all these countries and all the power groups, why aren't they just saying, let's get rid of this? Just get rid of this impediment. A selfish, flawed group of people just came along. They want a national home. They changed they called the Jewish state. They changed the language to modern Hebrew, Ivrit. Yeah. What was wrong with Lashon Kodesh, the language that God gave, that we were spoken all the years? Because they hate God. They made a court system besides the rabbinate, which is window dressing for them. That's considered blasphemy. Jews are not allowed to make another type of system. When Jews, God forbid, have a conflict, they have to go to a rabbinical court and to adjudicate it, because that's God's Torah. That's not so. They're smarter than God. They have to take. That's considered blasphemy. They made a court system. We're dealing with the worst of the worst. But this will end. It will end because it's against God.
And we pray. We pray too. We are praying too, because we need to have this peace again. We need to have this peace again. We need to have this convivencia. How can you say in Spanish again? We need to. Yeah. The world needs this, because I said, when Jews and Muslims get together, we can invent amazing things. If you see what Jewish physicians and Jewish scientists and mathematicians working in the greatest capitals of the Muslim world, what they created, marvel things. So this is what we need. And Zionism can create things, but it's always rooted in hate, always rooted in blood. And at the end of the day, this is what they will end up trying to do: destroy Judaism, taking all the goodwill to Jews in every single people in the world, showing these images. But we are fighting for this message. We are giving our lives for this message of peace, this message of living together, this message of holiness. Because, you know, our prophet, peace be upon him, he had a Jewish wife. He had a Jewish wife that come from a Jewish tribe where she was a princess, because the Arab Jews, they have a different tribal structure. And when she got to Medina, to the city of the prophet, other women started to mock her because of her Jewish ancestry. And she came to complain to the prophet. And what he said? Oh, they are right, you are a Jew. No. He said, be proud. You are a descendants of Aaron, of Harun. You are a descendant of Moses. And also, you are wife of Muhammad. And so the prophet raised her status for being descendant of the old patriarchs. Mm-hmm. This is what our prophet did. You know, this is how a Muslim need to behave. It's the best example is this example.
The level of respect he had with the Jewish community.
Once the prophet saw in front of him a Jewish funeral procession, and he got up, paying respect to the body of the dead Jew who was in front of him. And the people asked, oh, Messenger of God, this is a Jew. And the Messenger of God said, he's a human being. Knowing the shared humanity between them. This is what our prophet do. He get up when they saw a Jewish procession. The Jewish didn't ask him to do this. He was not obligated to do this. He don't need, to do this for politics, because the Jewish, they are walking. They are not seeing him. But he got up. It's a body, descendant of Adam, for the original man who share, a human family. And this is what we need to revive.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. This is a fact. It happens to be that I speak many times the disrespect that the Zionists have for the human body. Here I have so many different. We have compilations all the time of Jewish people. They dig up graves. They have no respect for the dead because they don't have godliness. So for archaeological purposes, they dig up graves. Right now, while I'm here, there's Ya'ud. There's a place called Ya'ud in Palestine. I don't know where exactly because I'm not living there. It's one of the towns in occupied Palestine. And there's blood spilling there of Jewish people because they dig up graves because they want to make if they want to make a highway or a hotel, they have no problems with digging up. Or they're archaeological because they know the Jews lived there. This rabbi lived there exactly so many years ago, so it's a boon. It's easy to so they study the body, and they do this without any respect for the dead. Well, I went to Egypt, and in Egypt they made the ring road because of so much traffic. They made a road around Cairo. And in order to do that, though, there's a massive Jewish cemetery because Jews lived there for all these hundreds and hundreds of years. So
more than 2,000 years.
Right. So in order not to disturb the graves, they made pillars, and it cost millions of dollars in order not to disturb the graves. And nobody talks about that. They didn't make a big issue of it simply because they didn't want to disturb the graves. Israel, they make Kvush 6, an extension. They ripped right through and you see the pictures of how Jewish rabbis and this standing there being brutally beaten by the Zionists. You have to go to our site to see these are smaller pictures. I should blow them up. You should be able to see how they're brutally being beaten because they're standing in the by the Zionists, and while they're trying to stop them from digging up graves. They're standing in this scoop of the tractor in order to stop them, but they don't care. They continue doing it. It's beyond comprehension the way they brutally beat them. You see the soldiers.
Prophet, he teaches us that you break the bone of a dead person is like to break a bone of a living person.
Yeah, you
need to respect the remainings of people. You don't, even your enemy, you cannot strike him in the face. You're not desecrating the bodies, taking part. This is impermissible because this is the image of our father Adam. You cannot, desecrate this image. It's something, this is representative of the God's creation. They do more than
that. They do autopsies. According to the Jewish religion, that is forbidden. So we have special groups that go to the hospitals. The second we hear somebody, God forbid, passed away, we stand there till he's buried because the Zionists, you leave him for 1 minute, they'll because they like to study the body, but it's unacceptable. Else it's sacred, the body. So just on and on and on. But you ask you about again, what could we do with peace? Again, we cannot give up. It's hard. But we have to remember that's the work of a person is to do, and the work of the Satan is to stop us from doing good. And we have to remember that it's totally evil. It says in the Torah, it will end, as I say. We pray to God and not be silenced, not be intimidated. If they call you anti-Semitic, always point to the Jewish communities around the world, the very religious, that they're totally anti-Zionist. If it gives, a person a little support, be careful. Don't call it a Jewish state. Call it, and it's very hard because the Jews, because at the end of the day, a lot of them are the Jews. So, but you have to be careful because they want you to say the Jews or the Jews state. So right away, you should be tainted that it should look like you're anti-Semitic. You have to be careful. Iran is very careful. They call it the Zionist entity, the Zionist state. They don't say the Jewish state. They don't say State of Israel. They don't say. And they're right. So it's the Zionist state, and be careful. We have to be careful how, because the world is looking to a slip of the tongue that a person like this, the Jews, even though you don't mean the Jews, you meant the Zionists, but they're looking to be able to discredit. And that when people are standing up and speaking up against this, unfortunately, the Jews, we plead with Jewish people around the world that they're being, Zionism has an endless amount of money, and they use it for PR, and they use it for fear mongering, that they should, like they take the Holocaust. They always, the concept of the Holocaust, we suffered, Jews were anti-Zionist, but they always conflate that with, therefore, you should support the State of Israel. They use this fear-mongering panic and trying to conflate the people of Palestine with the Nazis and so forth. They use these mind tricks, So you have to be. We plead with the Jewish people. Understand. Use your logic. Step out of your comfort zone. If you're really looking for the truth, if you're not looking for the truth, there's nobody to talk to. But if you're looking for the truth, again, why is it the very religious are opposed to it? Look at the facts on the ground. You will see it is unmistakable. There is no way of justifying the state of Israel, its existence, or what it's doing out there. There is absolutely no way. It's an insult to common sense. It's an insult to the attacks of anti-Semitism. And of course, it may be uncomfortable, but we think of the reward. The Almighty will repay you for what we're doing. People who were silent by World War II, by the Holocaust, many of them tear their hair from their heads, and they're embarrassed them. The grandchildren, their children, they ask them, why didn't you do more? And you could have done more. You have to answer to God eventually. Answer to God proudly that I did as much as I could. And we plead that with the leaders, especially the leaders, because they do have the power in their hands, clearly, with God's help, to stop the slaughter in Gaza. They can, so like I spoke in Parliament here in Brazil. So right away, instead of talking about the issues or talking what I said, the right said, he said there shouldn't be a state of Israel. Thank God they did say one thing. They did quote me of the fact that I called the textbook to anti-Semitism. So but they try to make it just like one radical issue and not talking about the facts that I put down while I gave my speech. No, they just take one sentence to make it look like that it's some radical idea. It's not radical. It's our life, and that we've been living together. It's life and death that's on the table here, and we have to understand this, that it's not a religious issue. We can live together when we're free of this occupation.
Amen.
Inshallah. Amen.
We pray too. So let's give a final message to the audience.
Yes, sure. So,
Não em português, because
em português.
Yeah.
Estamos chegando aos nossos finalmente aqui, infelizmente. Um episódio de altíssima qualidade que com certeza vai ficar para a história. Contribuição assim magnífica do meu irmão aqui, Mansur Peixoto. Quero te agradecer demais pelo convite, por essa articulação de trazer o Rabino, que espero que abra a cabeça de muita gente aqui no Brasil. Esperamos e rezamos para isso. Mas eu saio daqui com uma dose de esperança, e rezando para que as coisas se resolvam da melhor forma. Mas, mais uma vez, agradecer, Mansur, por você ter vindo. Você é um cara especial para nós, você sabe disso, é um grande irmão nosso. And I want to thank Rabbi for his presence here. I was talking that you gave me a dose of hope in all these conflicts that are happening, and we pray and wish that this message really gets to people, Brazilian people, so they can understand what really is going on.
Thank you.
So,
Obrigado.
I'm very glad.
Yeah.
I'm very glad. I'm very glad, really.
And Salamaleiko to everybody of Free Palestine,
fine.
Free Palestine, Free Gaza.
Pessoal, eu gostaria assim de agradecer a todos vocês que ficaram assistindo até aqui esse episódio. Compartilhem, comentem, assim, levem essa mensagem para onde quer que vocês puderem levar. Prestigiem o trabalho do Salamaleiko Podcast, de estar parando no meio de um feriado para a gente estar fazendo essa missão nesse episódio histórico. O rabino que vocês viram aqui tem uma vida dedicada à causa palestina. E não só ele, Rabino Elhanan Beck e tantos outros que participaram do processo de tirar essa imagem que os sionistas colocam em cima do judaísmo e trazer realmente um judaísmo baseado na Torá, baseado na Halachá, baseado em toda a herança judaica verdadeira que a gente precisa dissociar do sionismo, né? E que precisa ser colocada dessa forma. Essa entrevista que a gente deu aqui, essa fala, né, ela vai sair em cortes, ela vai sair na internet, em várias outras mídias que a gente vai planejar, né, de outras formas, e quero que vocês também, né, aí prestigiem isso, mas de qualquer forma, o trabalho aqui do Salamaleiko Podcast por estar cedendo essa grande entrevista. So now we'll return to English. Please, Rabbi, give a final message to our audience and the people who will watch it afterwards.
Yeah, so inshallah, God should help. Like I say, our hearts are crying with the people of Gaza, Palestine, Jews around the world. We are frustrated that it's being perpetrated in our name. Spread the word around. Do what you can, please. We cannot rest as long as this this terrible carnage in Gaza. Try to spread our word where you can. Call us wherever we can. We'd come to educate in universities and so on, and try to put pressure on your politicians and let the people in Gaza know you're in support. And one day we will, inshallah, soon, maybe today, with God's compassion,
Amen.
Inshallah, we will live together in peace again, as we've had for so many hundreds of years in free Palestine. Thank you.
Amen.
Just a final question, Rabbi. So where can people find you and learn from you? You have any digital
Right. Well, we
media?
have, with God's help, we have our site, NKUSA, Pinature character, N is in November, NKUSA.org, www.nkusa.org, Jews United Against Zionism. And I don't know what to say else. You can you'll find over there basically
On YouTube, many lectures.
We'll put here in Okay. Thank you very much, Rabbi. I'm very honored. One more time, Mansur, mais uma vez. Gente, obrigado por terem vindo até aqui, até o final. Compartilha, curta esse vídeo, entra no canal do História Islâmica, dá aquela força também, certo? Entra no canal que o Rabino falou para você conhecer mais sobre a história e não ficar falando bobagem por aí, certo? Então, muito obrigado a todos, a nossa audiência, que Deus abençoe a todos e assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم